Inni Kaur. Inni Kaur is a passionate author, poet, storyteller, and painter. She is the author of children's book series Journey with the Gurus that is inspired by the life and teachings of Guru Nanak. Her other children books are Sakhi-Time with Nani Ji, Thank You Vahiguru, and Thank You Vahiguru. To Inni, every single day is a celebration. While she writes anytime the spirit moves her, she also thoroughly enjoys watching the clouds pass her by, taking long mindful walks to appreciate nature's innate beauty, and painting abstract artwork. If you have ever met Inni Kaur in person, you know she works magic with her words and transports you to a world beyond. Listening to her alone will move you and inspire you to pen your own stories of love. So I hope all of you listening today are ready for a fun story time. Make sure you have your blankets and imagination on. And to begin our journey with our gurus, let's welcome Inni Kaur. Inni Kaur, welcome.
Thank you, Vineeth. That was a very warm introduction. And Vahiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vahiguru Ji Ki Fateh, everyone. I hope all of you are seated comfortably, ready for a storytelling session. And, and I want to begin as soon as we get to the opening, because right now, Vineet, we are, yes, perfect. So this story is taken from volume 3 of Journey with the Gurus. Yes, this is the third book in the series. And this, you know, all of you, I'm sure all of you already know that Guruji and Pai Mardana traveled all over the place. And we have a map here beneath, which we can show the children and their parents where all Guruji traveled. Now look at those footprints. That's right. Can you follow the places? Yeah. He even went to the Middle East. He crossed mountains. He went right up to the Himalayan mountains. He went right down to Sri Lanka, and then he crossed the ocean many times. That's all Guruji traveled. Keeping in mind, children, there were no planes or trains or cars at that time. So how do you think Guruji went there? That's right. He walked. He walked everywhere, and then crossing the ocean, he took the boat or the ferry. Now, a person who walked all over the place, what do you think he would be like? Would he be a fat person? Would he be a tall and strong person? That's where your imagination comes in. How do you imagine Guruji to be? Somebody tall and strong who's carrying his own clothes and everything and walking all over the place, or somebody fat who can't really move? How would he carry the things, right? So think about that as we begin the story. And this story the chapter is Nuri's Awakening. So we can go to the next slide. The summer heat was over, and the days were getting cooler. The countryside was once again beginning to turn green and blossom. One evening after dinner, Guruji said to his family, Pai Mardana and I will be leaving soon to continue our journey. Vineet, could you turn the slide, please? The children and I will wait for you to return, replied Mata Sulakhni ji lovingly. The next day, Pai Mardana went into town to get supplies for their travel. The shopkeeper could hardly believe that Guruji was leaving again. Why are you going? Isn't it dangerous? Don't you get tired? He blurted out. When I'm with Guruji, said Pai Mardana, I'm in no danger, and neither do I get tired. He is my light. and I will go wherever he goes, replied Bhai Mardana confidently, picking up the bundle of supplies. On the day of the departure, um, I want to pause here because, Vineet, are we having a problem moving the slide? Okay, so we'll continue. On the day of their departure, Guruji and Bhai Mardana walked with Jairam Praji and the children till the end of the town. Guruji hugged his sons and said, "Listen to your Mataji, Praji, and Bebeji. Don't cause them any worries. I will be back as soon as I can." Now, children, do we know who Jairam Praji was? That's right. He was Bebe Nanaki's husband. But do we know who Bebe Nanaki was? I'm sure you do. That's right. She was Guruji's older sister. So now let's get back to the story. Guruji and Bhai Mardana crossed the river Byas in a ferry. They walked through many villages and slept almost every night under the starry skies. Everywhere they went, they spread the message that we are children of Ik Oankar, the one eternal creator, and are all equal. Guruji taught the people that it is our actions that make us high or low, not our birth. Guruji, it looks like we are going to get rain. I think we should find a place to stay in the next village, said Bhai Mardana one evening as he watched the grey clouds spread over the sky. When the two men arrived at the next village, Bhai Mardana walked around town, asking everyone he met if he and Guruji could spend the night with them. Not one person agreed. If you were both Hindus, a Hindu family would be willing to let you stay with them. If you both were Muslims, a Muslim family would definitely share their home with you. But no one in the village will keep a Hindu and a Muslim together in his home, explained one of the villagers. There's a hut outside the village. Why don't you go there? I am sure Nuri would let you stay with him, said another villager sarcastically. Bhai Mardana returned to where Guruji was and repeated what the villagers had told him. Guruji smiled and said, "It is hukam that we stay at this hut. Let's go." Drops of rain began to fall as they walked to the end of the village. "Greetings. May we stay with you for the night?" called out Bhai Mardana nervously as they stood outside the solitary hut. "Please don't come near me," answered a faint voice from the hut. "I am a leper with an incurable disease. My family and the villagers have turned me out of the village. I don't blame them. I'm just waiting for death to put me out of my misery." Guruji heard the despair in the man's voice. He and Bhai Mardana entered the hut. Nuri was shocked to see them. No one else had dared to visit him. Guruji went over to Nuri's bed. He stroked his head and gently said, "When Ik Oankar, the One who has created everything, is forgotten, the mind becomes sick. When the mind becomes sick, diseases take place in the body. The cure for these diseases is to feel the presence of Ik Oankar within you. Be grateful to the Creator who has given you this body. This body is meant to serve humanity. When we don't serve, the mind and body become diseased. Nuri listened carefully to Guruji's words. I can barely walk. It is difficult for me to do anything. How can I feel the presence of Ik Oankar within me? How can I serve? I am of no use to anyone, he sobbed. You are a spark of the light of Ik Oankar, Guruji said. I want you to remember that the light of Ik Oankar lives within you. Can you do that, Nuri? Nuri nodded a bit uncertainly. How do I do that? He hesitatingly asked. Guruji replied, remember Ik Oankar every moment. See the light of Ik Oankar in all. Focus your mind on all that is alive within and around you. Try to live in gratitude. Nuri, don't wait for death. Life is a precious gift. Connect with the light of Ik Oankar and you will be healed from inside and outside. Even in your illness, find ways to serve. How do I serve? Who do I serve? Nuri eagerly asked. First, serve yourself, Guruji said. Embrace life and recognize the divine in all. Soon you will know the way you want to live the rest of your life. Guruji's words made a deep impression on Nuri. All night long he thought about what he had heard. The illusion that his disease was incurable slowly lifted from his mind. You have given me hope, said Nuri smilingly as he bade goodbye to Guruji and Pai Mardana the next day. I will always remember your words. I hope I have the resolve to follow your advice. Remember, Ik Oankar is always with you and loves you, replied Guruji, touching Nuri's forehead. Pai Mardana bent down and whispered in Nuri's ear, You are a very lucky man. Guru Nanak came to your home. If you follow his teachings, I am sure you will be cured. So from that day onward, Nuri would wake up with a smile. He slowly began to see the beauty around him. He took delight in feeding the birds and did his best to keep his home clean. He even planted a small garden and joyfully watched the flowers grow and blossom. Often he would think about Guruji and Pai Mardana and wondered where they were. He felt extremely fortunate that they had stayed with him. He knew that they had showed him a new way of coping with his illness, and that realization had changed his life. Many months passed by. One morning, Nuri felt strong enough to walk down to the river for his bath. After bathing, a strange sensation filled his body. Walking tall and straight, he returned to his village. His family and friends were shocked to see him walking so well. They quickly gathered around him and wanted to know how he was cured. What happened? What happened? Tell us everything, they demanded. Nuri softly replied, One stormy evening, many months ago, two fakirs came to my hut seeking shelter. One of them was very unique. His name was Guru Nanak. He spoke to me. Then he sang, while the other man played the rabab. His words entered my heart and mind and filled me with joy. His love for me made me want to live again. The villagers wondered if it were Guruji and Pai Mardana to whom they had refused shelter. They felt quite ashamed of themselves. Please come back home, they begged Nuri. You are cured now, added one of them. There is no need for you to stay all by yourself in that hut any more. Nuri smiled and gently said, Thank you for saying that, but I will continue to stay at my hut. My Guru Fakir taught me that we are all children of Ik Oankar, and that the spark of Ik Oankar lives within all of us. My home will become a dharamsala where everyone is always welcome. So, children, that's the end of this story, of this chapter of Nuri's awakening.
Thank you, Inni for sharing with us that story. And I'd like to take this time to remind our audience that we are accepting questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the questions panel, or you can request for us to activate your mic and you can ask it over the microphone. Inni, to take the story a step beyond, why was it that the community members that Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Bhai Mardana Ji visited refused to host both of them in the same house?
Ah, excellent question, Vineet. During that time, they, the caste system was also very much there in the Hindu tradition, where people from the higher caste would not talk or even would not speak or have any interaction with other castes. So there was a high caste and the low caste. But here you had a Hindu and a Muslim, and there was no way that anybody was going to keep them because the lines were very, very strong. Because the Hindus thought that they were superior, and therefore, and the Muslims thought that the Hindus were not believers because the Hindus at that time believed in statues and idols. So the way of thinking of both these communities was very different. But remember what Guruji said when he came out from the river bend, right? That there is no Hindu, there is no Muslim. We are all children of the one God, of Ik Oankar, of Vahiguru. And that was quite revolutionary at that time. People did not even understand that message. And some of them were quite unkind to Guruji as well. Does that answer your question, Beneath?
Yes, it does, Nipanji. So there was an easier way out for Guru Nanak, Guruji and Pai Mardana Ji, which was to stay. Guruji could have stayed with the Hindu household, and Pai Mardana with the Muslim household. But why was it that they took the time and effort to then visit Nuri instead and not take the easier option?
Oh, another great question. Why do you think, that? So when things get difficult, do you go against what you believe in? Think about it. Even today, sometimes things are difficult for us and we can take the easy way out. And I'm sure, I mean, at that time it was raining that day. And Guruji could have taken the easy way out. But what did he say? Let's go back to what he said when he came out of the river. There is no Hindu, there is no Muslim. So he was going with very much what he believed in. And it is the beliefs that you stand up to. What would you do, Vineet, if you were in a situation where, you could have taken the easy way out? What if your friend, if you were invited to a concert, let's take, or if you were invited to, or if you were playing on a soccer field and your friend, for whatever reason, was not allowed to play or was not allowed to enter the concert, what would you do? Would you would you go ahead and play in the at the soccer game, and would you enter the concert, or would you fight for her or his rights, or would you stand up for them? That's a question for you. I'm asking you now, Vineet. What would you do?
I would have to stand in solidarity with those who are not being given their rights to perform, to be, and so I would have to stay back with my friend and voice my values and belief that we all deserve representation, we all deserve participation in that concert.
But that's hard to do, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's where we get inspiration from the ways our gurus have showed us through Sakhis that we listen on how to handle situations when the situation itself presents with an easier way. I don't think I would have ever thought of why it was a big deal for Guruji to not stay in the Hindu household and by Mardana ji in a different household, because we don't think a lot about what is going behind the scenes with making these decisions and the active stance to participate in this um, social prejudice that existed in those communities. He decided to visit Nuri. And what's interesting is that visiting Nuri, there is a new opportunity that is presented to learn something new, as well as for Nuri to change and transform his life.
And that's what Guruji does. That's what Guru is. Guru transforms lives. So, and here we have an excellent example of how Nuri's life got transformed.
Indeed. So, why was Nuri staying in the hut outside the village, even though he was sick and needed his community around him? Was there
Why
something
do you?
wrong with him?
Well, people are scared, right? And when you get scared, you close doors, you shun people, and they didn't know how sick Nuri was, and they were scared that they would also get the disease. So this is where compassion comes in, but they were not compassionate because they were scared. So out of fear, they drove him out of his home. Think about that. When you are not well, where do you really want to be? You want to be with your loved ones. But if your loved ones turn their back on you out of fear, because they don't want to catch something, your will, you get broken inside. You get even sadder, and you don't, you feel very sad and lonely and lost. And that's what Nuri felt. Very sad, lonely, like nobody cares for him. And that's why they turned him out. But this happens all the time. When people get sick, sometimes when our elders get sick, we don't pay enough attention. But that's when they need us the most, because their bodies are hurting and they need us to be kind. They need us to be quite a bit more compassionate and give them the strength and the hope that they're going to get well. But it is the fear. People fear, and it's the fear that causes people to act in ways that they would not normally act.
Exactly, and it shows us what ignorance and shunning an individual can do to that person. And on the other side, what empowerment and love for the one creator, for the one or one human race can do to that same individual, and the transformation that Nuri went through. So, is it true that Nuri was really cured of his disease?
What do you think? I mean, yeah, I want to ask you, what do you think? Do you think Nuri was really cured of his disease?
See,
Because
I
you curing is, there is physical and there is also mental, right?
exactly.
So when he got positive, when he began to look at life in a different way, when he woke up smiling, when he began to take care of himself and his surroundings, and when he began to take care of even of the birds and planted a garden, that gave him hope and life. And he began to see the beauty around him. And that changed. That was positive energy. And that's what it is. It's sometimes, you learn to live with an illness, and sometimes the illness leaves you because you become happy. And Nuri, I feel, became happy. And that changed him completely. It was like a new lease on life he got, that he can still serve. He began to serve the birds. He began to appreciate the environment, and he knew he had a purpose in life. And that's what, Guru does. And that's the experience, is when we believe that the light of Ik Oankar is within us, that we are a jyot, and we look at that light, we get strength from that light. What do you think, Vineet?
I think that new way of thinking was again a social script that Nuri was, previously being fed by his community that dimmed his own light because they were constantly not encouraging him but telling him everything that was wrong with him. And Guru's arrival gave him this new perspective and a way of looking at life, that how connected he was and what potential he had within him. And that new way of life is what helped him live out that potential, regardless of whether he was physically still ill or not. It was that mental transformation that allowed him to smile, to get outside, and to be a better person. Of
And some
indeed,
would call that a miracle, wouldn't they?
yes,
But that's what happens when Shabad enters your life, when Guru enters your life, things change. Things that seemed hard, things that were seemed impossible, all of a sudden become possible and not so hard. And that's the power of Guru. That's the power of Shabad. Because right now, for us, it is Shabad Guru. So when we connect with the Shabad Guru, when we understand what the Guru is saying, and it's not enough only to understand, it is then you have to follow the teachings. Then you have to incorporate them in your life. And that's the transformation.
indeed. And this was a very timely and very quite a exemplary Sakhi that you shared with us, Iniji, because there's so many lessons that we can take out from just this one Sakhi today. So could you do a quick recap for us, or I'll share that summary as well for our viewers that are listening today. So what were the two main commentaries that this Sakhi is helping us highlight in our society?
Well, I think the first one, the main one, is the when we segregate people on the basis of religion or caste or the way they look. I mean, I would even say today in the color, when we say he is different from that or she is different from that, and we don't look at them as individuals, as children of one God, of one creator, that we are all equal and we have the same divine light in all of us. When we cannot see that, that's the main thing. This, for me, this story is that we are one. And the second thing also, what I really took away from this, or was a summary, was that Guru, that you don't change your values and beliefs according to the situation. I mean, if you strongly believe in something and you value it, you stick with that no matter how difficult it is, because that is going to teach you and even make you stronger. And maybe it will help somebody in that. I mean, taking for the example of Guruji. I mean, if he had stayed in the village, Nuri, he would not have been able to help Nuri. But him standing for his belief system, that was for me very, very powerful, because it's so easy to take the easy way out. And this was, for me, that was one of the things. And I also, the compassion of how that we need to be a lot more compassionate with people who are not well. And when I say not well, there are all kinds of diseases. While there are the diseases of the body, there are also diseases of the mind. We need to have the compassion for people who are going through depression, who are going through mental illness, that we need to be a lot more, we need to be kinder to them. So those were my main things. I would love to hear yours, Vinay.
To echo some of yours, I think it's important to see how we discriminate amongst our own selves and amongst others, and how sometimes these things might not even look like that they're big deals, that we are, you know, discriminating inwardly or outwardly. But it's important for us to take and to recognize that we should not build walls, we should not build these barriers in our communities, and we should accept each other as all, you know, as children of that one divine. Secondly, it was that the change of our mental perception of how we view the world around us can make the biggest difference. A lot of times we come up with excuses of, no, this is not the right time for me. Here Nuri is being outcasted and is critically ill in bed. But just that perception of wanting to do something and having that inspiration that the divine light is bright within him and he wants to go and share that message and help made all the difference for him. And I think that is one step that Nuri took that was so powerful for him. And that's one step that we can aspire to take every day for us. So now going beyond the story itself, Inni, tell us a little bit about the storytelling process. How did you, what inspired you to write these stories and to share these stories?
Oh, it was actually my children. But they were in their 20s, and they were teasing their father one day with all the stories what he had read to them when they were young, when they were children. And at that point, I realized that had they read Sakhis or stories of the gurus, they would have remembered them like they were remembering these Peter Rabbit stories. but there were no good books at that time. And the voice within me said, "Well, you should write the book." And I had never written a book until then. And so I began the journey. The first book took me about 3 years because I didn't know the content. I didn't know what I needed to write, how I wanted to write. And, I want to share a little story with you, Vineet. I mean,
Mhm.
I had, written 12, I think 10 chapters or 12 chapters, and I thought I was the greatest. I felt so confident and I was like flying high. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that I should have some of the children read them. So I sent them to a few children around the United States. And do you know what they said? These stories make no sense.
Oh,
Yeah. So do you know how I felt? Here I was ready to send it to the designer to lay out. And there the children said, these stories make no sense. So back to the drawing board. And then I reworked, told every story. And from then on, every story that I did, I wrote, I sent it to 5 sets of children around the United States to get their feedback, their opinion, whether it made sense. And I proceeded from there. So the first book took me, I would say, at least 4.5 years because I had the content um, was not right. And then, I had the task of finding an illustrator and then getting it printed. But I think having the children as my partners, as in this experience of journey with the gurus, has been amazing. So every story I do send to the children and get their feedback, and only then, when they say it's good to go, that I say I have it laid out.
I
It's
see.
a different process. I don't know if you knew that.
No, that is actually quite new. So, for our young writers who are wanting to develop their own writing, one would be to, share their writing with the audience that they are targeting and get their feedback. But was there anything else that you know, picked up during your process of developing your writing that you'd like to share with our young writers?
So, because these were guru stories, so I had to have one source, because if you have multiple sources, then people get confused and I would get confused. So I chose to follow the stories written by Paisa Bhai Veer Singh Ji. So I follow with Journey with the Gurus, I follow Guru Nanak Chamatkar. So if you want to do a series of stories about the gurus or historical events, then I would strongly suggest that you find, one source. And yes, you do your research on the others, but you have the one main source, and then you can add the events in it. But however, if you're doing stories from, your imagination, or you want to create a series, then that's a totally different way of looking at it. I spent a lot of time at the library. I would get books and books out and just read, read, read. And then I looked at some of the books which I really liked, and I said, that's the way my book is going to look like. And that's the type of book I want to write. That gives you, a little bit more direction. Okay, the book is going to be this size. I like the style. I like the way it is written. So my advice would be go to the library, sit in the library, live in the library, get the books out, and then figure out which ones you really like and why you like them. So you also have to look at the books which you don't like and say, why don't you like those books? What is it that doesn't speak to you from those books? And then you'll come up with your own original idea and your own original way. But it's very important to know what you like, but it's equally important to know what you don't like. And that's where you make that decision, because then it becomes yours. Because maybe you like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it becomes then your way of telling the story. Does that make sense?
That does. And that also seems like, a lot of planning and effort that you put into it. So how long did it take you to write this book, Iniji?
Well, the first book, like I said, took me about 4.5 years, but that was from when I began with the idea and to the final product, because, there's also the stage of you have to have a designer who lays out the story for you. You also, it's very important, it's critical that you have an editor who looks at every word and makes sure that it is proofed properly. And then the hardest thing is to find a printer. And I get these books printed in China because it's cost effective and also their binding is very good. Because I want these books to last for a long, long time. So the paper quality and the binding is very good on these books. And that takes about 3 months. So when I send the files to China, by the time I get the books in my hand, it's a 3-month process.
Right. And do you paint these books yourself, Iniji?
Oh, no, no, no. I have an illustrator. I have his name is Pradeep Singh, and he is in Chandigarh, India. So what I do is after the story gets laid out, um, I I choose where I want my pictures to go, and then I send him notes and tell him what type of a picture that I want, illustration that I want, and then he sketches one out in black and white for me and he
Mhm.
sends it to me and I make all my corrections there, what I want included, what I don't want included. And once we've approved the sketch, it might take us, going back 2 3 times. Once the sketch is approved, then he colors it, then he paints it, and then he sends me the file and I send that to the designer to lay it out, and that's the process that it takes.
Beautiful. So, what is a role of writing in your life? Because you do seem to write a lot. Is this an artistic exercise for you? Is it meditative practice for you?
Each series is different. So with Journey with the Gurus, it was extremely important to me that we have something for the children which is the same quality, content wise, as well as look wise, as the children from other faith traditions have. So when I looked at the library and I saw the beautiful books on, the biblical stories and the stories from the Jewish tradition, stories from the Islamic tradition, uh, there was nothing really on the Sikh stories. So I chose to do that in this way. So it was more of an education. However, the other writings, when I do poetry and translations of some of the Shabbat, that's a meditation. That is meditative for me. That is my own learning. Even this is my own learning, but it's every book has a different feeling. Like when I did Thank You, Vahiguru, it was really important to me that the children know how our names are kept, because I think that is priceless. That we go to the guru, and then we get the word that comes from there, and that's how we name the children. And I thought that was magical, and I wanted to capture that, and I wanted to share that with the children. How precious that is, and how blessed we are that we have this way of doing it. So each book has a different feeling to it.
And all of these different volumes are in conjunction with Guru Nanak's Chamatkar, so they're chronological in that sense.
Yes, Journey with the Gurus is, yes, there it is. So I'm working on my fourth volume at the moment.
All right. Well, we look forward to, having access to that volume and potentially have you come back and read a story from that volume with us.
I'd love
It
to
is,
do that.
Yes. Is there anything you'd like to share with us before we end our webinar today?
No, I mean it's always wonderful to, to share the story, and it's amazing that when I read and share the story, every time I learn something new, I look at it in a different way. Like this time, particularly beneath when I was reading the story of Nuri, and I am looking at what is happening in the United States, my country, and looking at the situation with the immigration situation and the walls being built. This story is so important for me. It just reinforces what I need to do. It's telling me how I need to act, what I need to do, to have my voice heard, that what is happening may not be in the best interest of humanity. So while I'm reading it for the children, I'm also learning from it simultaneously.
And there's such wealth of knowledge, like you mentioned, that I think there's a new understanding we gain every time we read our Sakhis. So
Yes.
with that note, thank you so much, Inni Benji. Before we do our closing, I'd just like to remind our audience that's tuned in that please be reminded that these webinars are provided for free, but there is a cost associated with the technology and administration. If you feel that you've benefited from this particular webinar or others in the past, please consider making a donation to Sikri or becoming a webinar sponsor. More details can be obtained at info@sikri.org. And a reminder to everyone to please wait a few seconds for the link to appear on a follow-up survey. Your feedback is extremely important to Sikri, and we appreciate your time. With that, I'd like to offer our deepest gratitude to Inni Kaur to come and join us and share a chapter from Journey with the Gurus. As I end the webinar today, on behalf of Sikri, I thank each and every one of you and Inni Kaur for your e-sangat today. Vahiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vahiguru Ji
Vahiguru
Ki
Ji
Fateh.
Fateh.